The Great Hall of Meridian's 7 Academy stretched so high that Sarah Webb could barely see the ceiling. Crystal walls surrounded her on all sides, showing the stars beyond. She stood among 200 cadets from different worlds. Most of them were twice her size. Sarah was human. There were only 3 humans in the entire academy. Everyone else came from warrior races that had fought in galactic wars for thousands of years. "Form ranks," Commander Zrel ordered. His voice boomed across the hall. The Krellian instructor had 4 eyes and skin like gray stone. Each eye seemed to look at a different cadet, judging them. Sarah moved into position. A Vraxian cadet shoved past her, his shoulder hitting hers hard enough to make her stumble. He did not apologize. He did not even look back. "You stand in the most prestigious military academy in known space," Zrel announced. "Only the best warriors earn a place here. The strongest, the fastest, the most deadly." Holographic images appeared in the air above them. Battles from across the galaxy played out in shimmering light. Sarah recognized some of them from her studies. "The Vraxian campaigns," Zrel said as armored warriors tore through enemy lines with claws and teeth. "The Karathi conquests," he continued as bone-plated soldiers crushed their opponents. "The Thalorian expansion." He finished as massive beings wielded weapons that could level cities. Then images of Earth appeared. Old images. Humans in primitive armor shooting bullets at each other. Explosions from chemical weapons. Planes that could barely break the sound barrier. "And the human conflicts," Zrel said. His tone changed. It became mocking. Tribal wars fought with powder and metal. They needed machines because their bodies were too weak to fight properly. Laughter spread through the hall like fire. Sarah felt her face grow warm, but she kept her expression neutral. Her hands stayed clasped behind her back. A massive Vraxian stepped forward from the ranks. Krath was his name. Sarah had heard it many times already. He was the top-ranked cadet in their class, the son of a famous war general. His red scales caught the light as he moved, making him look like he was covered in blood. "Commander Zrel, I have a question," Krath said. His voice was deep and rough. "How exactly did humans gain admission to this academy? Surely they did not earn it through combat trials like the rest of us." More laughter. Louder this time. Sarah could feel eyes turning toward her. Zrel's mouth curved into something like a smile. "The human government purchased 3 seats through their planetary contribution fund. They lack the natural abilities we seek in warriors, but their credits are valid currency. So they bought their way in," a Karathi female called out. Her name was Shara, and bone ridges ran along her skull like a crown. "They did not earn it." "Correct," Zrel said simply. Krath walked toward Sarah. His claws clicked on the metal floor with each step. He stopped directly in front of her, looking down from his 7-foot height. Sarah was 5'6". She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Look at this one," Krath said to the assembled cadets. "No claws to tear flesh. No armored skin to turn away blades. No venom to paralyze enemies. No enhanced strength or speed." He circled her slowly. "What exactly do you bring to a military academy, human?" Sarah said nothing. Her jaw was tight, but she kept her mouth closed. "Perhaps she cooks well," another Vraxian called out. "Humans are good at serving, I hear." "Or cleaning," a Thalorian added. "They have soft hands. Good for delicate work." The laughter grew louder. Some cadets were recording the moment on their personal devices. Sarah could see the small lights blinking around the hall. "Humans need computers to aim their weapons," Shara said. "They need machines to make them stronger. They need armor because their skin tears like paper." "They are not warriors," Krath declared. "They are technicians who hide behind technology." "Enough," Zrel said, but his tone carried no real authority. He was clearly enjoying the display. "Return to your ranks. We have much to cover today." The cadets began to disperse, but many made sure to pass close to Sarah. A Thalorian stepped on her boot, grinding his heel down with his full weight before moving on. A Karathi bumped her with an armored elbow, nearly knocking her over. A young Vraxian spat near her feet, the acidic saliva sizzling on the metal floor. Sarah stood perfectly still through all of it. Her breathing remained steady. Her hands stayed clasped. But her right hand moved slightly, fingers brushing against her collar. The fabric felt rough under her fingertips. "Pathetic," she heard someone whisper as the cadets filed toward the barracks. "She will quit within a week," another voice said. "I give her 3 days," a third replied. Soon Sarah stood alone in the center of the great hall. The holographic displays had shut off. The only sound was the hum of the station's life support systems and the distant echo of footsteps disappearing down the corridors. She looked up at the crystal ceiling at the stars beyond. Earth was out there somewhere. Home. But home was very far away now. Sarah's hand moved to her collar again. This time she gripped the fabric tightly. Beneath it, against her skin, she could feel the raised texture of ink. The tattoo that covered her throat. The tattoo that no one here had seen yet. The tattoo that held 23 names. She released her collar and straightened her uniform. Her boots echoed in the empty hall as she walked toward the barracks. Tomorrow would bring more of the same. More mockery. More tests. More cadets who thought she did not belong. Let them think it, she told herself. Let them laugh. They would understand soon enough. They would all understand. Sarah touched her collar one last time before entering the barracks corridor. The fabric covered her secret. Her truth. Her reminder of why she was here and what she had survived to earn this place. For now, silence was her weapon. Patience was her strategy. And when the time came, when they finally saw what she carried on her skin and in her soul, the laughter would die. It always did. The Combat Simulation Center occupied the entire lower deck of the training station. Sarah stood with her assigned team in the staging area, watching the holographic battlefield materialize before them. The mission parameters appeared on the display screens above. Rescue 12 hostages from a fortified compound. Time limit, 20 minutes. Failure meant repeating the entire simulation module. Sarah's team consisted of 5 cadets. Besides herself, there was Krath the Vraxian, Shara the Karathi, a Thalorian named Drex, and a Zentari called Kix who could phase through solid matter for short periods. Listen carefully, Krath began, clearly assuming command. Drex and I will breach the main entrance. Shara, you take the western wall. Kix, phase through and disable their shields from inside. What about the human? Kix asked, his 3-fingered hand pointing at Sarah. Krath glanced at her with obvious annoyance. She can stay here and monitor communications. Try not to break anything. Sarah opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. She had reviewed the simulation parameters. She had studied similar scenarios during her preparation. But these cadets had already decided she had nothing to offer. Simulation beginning in 10 seconds, the automated voice announced. The staging area dissolved. Sarah found herself standing behind a rocky outcrop 200 meters from the compound. Energy barriers shimmered around the fortress. Guard towers tracked movement with automated weapons. The whole structure was designed to be nearly impossible to assault. Move out, Krath ordered. He and Drex charged forward immediately, their natural strength letting them cover ground quickly. Energy blasts erupted from the guard towers. Drex's thick armor plating absorbed the first few shots, but the concentrated fire forced him back. Krath tried to circle around, but automated turrets tracked his movement, forcing him to dive for cover. Western approach is blocked, Shara reported over the communication channel. At least 6 turrets covering that angle. Kix, phase through now, Krath commanded. The Zentari shimmered and became translucent. He moved toward the wall, but the moment he touched the energy barrier, electricity arced through his partially solid form. He screamed and fell back, his body solidifying again as he lost concentration. The barrier has anti-phasing technology, Kix gasped. I cannot get through. Then we go through the front, Krath snarled. Drex with me. Full assault. Sarah watched from her position as the 2 warriors charged the main gate. They were strong and fast, exactly what their species was bred for. But strength alone was not enough. The automated defenses tracked them perfectly, laying down overlapping fields of fire. Within 30 seconds, both were tagged by simulation weapons and marked as casualties. Restart positions, the automated voice announced. Attempt 1 failed. 19 minutes remaining. The simulation reset. Everyone returned to the starting point. Different approach, Krath said, breathing hard. Shara, you and Kix create a distraction on the east side. Drex and I will hit them from the west while they are focused on you. Sarah cleared her throat. The defense pattern repeats every. Did I ask for your input? Krath snapped. Stay quiet. Watch and learn how real warriors operate. The second attempt began. It lasted 45 seconds before everyone except Sarah was marked as a casualty. The automated defenses were simply too precise, too coordinated. Attempt 2 failed. 17 minutes remaining. They tried again. And again. Each time they relied on speed and strength and aggression. Each time the simulation defeated them within a minute. Sarah had stopped trying to offer suggestions. Instead she watched. She observed the guard tower rotations. She noted the firing patterns. She counted the seconds between energy barrier fluctuations. 47 seconds. Every time. The entire defense system cycled through its pattern in exactly 47 seconds. And at the end of each cycle there was a gap. 3 seconds where the western tower rotated to cover the eastern approach, leaving a blind spot. 3 seconds was not much time. But it was enough. Attempt 6 failed. 9 minutes remaining. Krath slammed his fist against a rock. This is impossible. The simulation is designed to fail us. No, Sarah said quietly. It is designed to test us. What? Krath turned to face her. There is a weakness, Sarah continued. The defense pattern repeats every 47 seconds. At the end of each cycle, the western guard tower has a 3-second gap in coverage while it rotates to cover the eastern approach. 3 seconds. Sarah laughed. We cannot cross 200 meters in 3 seconds. No, Sarah agreed. But you can cross 50 meters. If we position ourselves closer during the cycle, we can use the gap to advance in stages. Drex shook his massive head. Advancing in stages means exposing ourselves multiple times. One mistake and we are tagged. One mistake charging blindly and we are definitely tagged, Sarah countered. We have tried that 6 times already. My way gives us a chance. Krath stared at her for a long moment. Fine. We try it your way. What? If it fails, we go back to direct assault. Sarah outlined the plan quickly. Each team member would advance during the 3-second gap, using the terrain for cover. Kix would go first since he was fastest. Then Sarah. Then Drex. Then Krath. Sarah would go last. Timing is critical, Sarah emphasized. You must move exactly when I tell you. Not before. Not after. They positioned themselves. Sarah watched the guard tower, counting silently. 43. 44. 45. 46. 47. Kix go. The Zentari sprinted forward, covering 50 meters in 2.5 seconds. He dropped behind a boulder just as the tower completed its rotation. 47 seconds later, Sarah go. The Karathi moved with surprising speed for someone wearing heavy bone armor. She reached the next position with half a second to spare. Drex go. The Thalorian lumbered forward. He was slower than the others, but his long legs covered the distance. He made it with barely a second remaining. Krath go. The Vraxian hesitated for just a moment, then ran. He reached cover as the tower began to turn back. Sarah counted again. When the moment came, she sprinted forward herself. Her human legs carried her across the open ground. Energy blasts fired where she had been standing a second before. They repeated the process 3 more times, advancing in carefully timed stages. When they reached the compound wall, Kix phased through during another gap in the barrier's power cycle. He disabled the shields from inside. The team rushed in and extracted all 12 hostages with 4 minutes remaining. Simulation complete. Success. Back in the staging area, Krath stood with his arms crossed. Other teams had gathered to watch the results display. Acceptable performance, he said loudly. My tactical planning proved effective. The timing was perfect, Sarah added. I calculated the pattern and led the team through. Sarah said nothing. She simply walked toward the exit. Wait, a Vraxian from another team called out. I saw the replay. The human was giving the orders. She was repeating my commands, Krath said smoothly. Humans have good memories. Useful for communication relay. Lucky observation about the pattern, Drex agreed. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Sarah kept walking. Let them take credit. Let them believe what they wanted. She touched her collar briefly as she left the chamber. The truth did not need an audience. Not yet. 3 weeks passed at Meridian 7 Academy. Sarah attended every class, completed every assignment, and scored in the top 15% of all cadets. None of it mattered. In tactical strategy courses, she offered solutions that instructors marked as excellent. Her teammates ignored her suggestions and failed simulations, then blamed her for not speaking up. When she did speak up, they talked over her. In physical conditioning, she matched the endurance requirements despite having no enhanced biology. Other cadets whispered that humans use performance drugs. No one mentioned that she ran twice as long as most of them. In weapons training, her accuracy scores exceeded 70% of the class. Krath told everyone that human weapons were designed to be easy since humans were too weak to handle real combat. Every morning brought new mockery. Every afternoon brought new dismissals. Every evening, Sarah returned to her small quarters alone while other cadets bonded in their species groups. She kept her collar fastened tight. She spoke only when necessary. She waited. The mess hall on level 7 served food for 30 different species. Long tables filled the space, each one claimed by cadets from similar worlds. Vraxians sat with Vraxians. Karathi grouped with Karathi. The 3 humans sat at separate tables, not even forming their own group. Sarah carried her meal tray toward an empty corner. She had learned to eat quickly and leave before the trouble started. But today she was not fast enough. Well, Krath's voice boomed across the mess hall. The human actually eats real food. I thought she survived on protein paste and cowardice. Laughter erupted from the Vraxian table. Several cadets pulled out their recording devices. Sarah kept walking. She had almost reached her table when Krath moved to block her path. 3 other Vraxians flanked him. Behind them she could see Shara and Drex watching with interest. I am talking to you, human, Krath said. I heard you, Sarah replied quietly. Please move. Please? Krath mocked her tone. So polite. So soft. This is a military academy, not a diplomatic reception. Sarah tried to step around him. He moved to block her again. Her meal tray shook slightly in her hands, but her face remained calm. 3 weeks you have been here, Krath continued, his voice carrying across the now silent mess hall. 3 weeks of taking up space meant for real warriors. 3 weeks of pretending you belong. I completed the same entrance trials as everyone here, Sarah said. Purchase trials? Shara called out from her table. Everyone knows humans bought their way in. Krath leaned closer. Sarah could smell the sulfur on his breath. You know what I think? I think humans are parasites. You attach yourselves to real civilizations and claim credit for their achievements. Sarah set her tray down on the nearest table. Her hands were now free. I think you should step aside. Or what? Krath laughed. You will report me? File a complaint? That is the human way, yes? Talk and complain instead of fight. The mess hall had gone completely silent. Every cadet watched. Every recording device pointed at them. Real warriors have scars, Krath announced. They have marks from battle. They have proof of their courage. He gestured to a long scar running down his arm. This is from the trial of blades on my home world. I earned this when I was 12 years old. Shara stood and showed her own scars. These are from my first hunt. I fought a ridge beast with only my bare hands. Drex pulled back his sleeve to reveal burn marks. Ceremonial fire trials. Every Thalorian warrior bears these marks. Krath turned back to Sarah. Where are your scars, human? Where is your proof? Or did you sit in a classroom while others fought? I do not need to prove anything to you, Sarah said. Her voice remained level, but something had changed in her eyes. A coldness that had not been there before. Yes, you do, Krath insisted. He reached out suddenly and grabbed her collar. Show us. Show us these warrior marks you surely do not have. Let go, Sarah said. Each word came out separately, distinctly. Make me, Krath challenged. His claws tightened on the fabric. Several things happened in the next second. Sarah's hand moved toward Krath's wrist in what looked like a defensive training position. But Krath was faster. He yanked hard on her collar, pulling her forward. The fabric strained against the force. Then it tore. The sound of ripping cloth echoed in the silent mess hall. Krath stumbled backward, still holding a piece of Sarah's uniform collar in his claws. Sarah stood perfectly still, her throat now exposed. The laughter that had been building in the crowd died instantly. Ink covered Sarah's throat. Dark lines formed intricate patterns across her skin, starting just below her jaw and disappearing beneath what remained of her uniform. But these were not decorative patterns. These were not artistic designs. These were words. Names. Dozens of them, written in careful script that wrapped around her throat like a memorial. The mess hall remained silent. Cadets leaned forward trying to read the names. Recording devices zoomed in, capturing every detail. Sarah's hand moved slowly to her throat, fingers tracing the tattooed names. Her expression had changed completely. The quiet, patient cadet who endured mockery was gone. In her place stood someone different. Someone harder. You wanted to see scars, Sarah said softly. Her voice carried in the absolute silence. You wanted proof. Krath had gone very still. The piece of torn collar fell from his claws. Sarah reached up and unfastened the rest of her uniform jacket. She removed it carefully, folding it once before setting it on the table beside her abandoned meal tray. Beneath, she wore only a standard issue undershirt. The tattoo was fully visible now. Names covered her entire throat. They continued down across her collarbone. Some were human names. Others were alien designations translated into English characters. Each one was written in the same careful script. Each one was positioned precisely in the overall design. "These are not scars," Sarah said. "These are something more permanent." She began to unbutton her undershirt. Several cadets looked away, but most continued to stare. When she pulled the fabric aside slightly, they could see the tattoo continued across her upper chest. More names. More careful script. 23 names, Sarah said. Her finger touched each one as she spoke. 23 people I carried off battlefields. 23 soldiers who did not make it home. The silence was so complete that the hum of the station's air systems seemed loud. "You asked for proof," Sarah continued. She looked directly at Krath. "You demanded to see evidence of a warrior." She took a step toward the Vraxian. He did not move. "I wear my proof every day," Sarah said. "I feel it every time I swallow. I see it every time I look in a mirror. I carry these names so I never forget the weight of command. The cost of survival. The price of war." Krath's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sarah picked up her jacket and put it back on, covering the tattoo once more. She fastened it carefully, though the collar remained torn. "Now you have seen," she said. "Are you satisfied?" No one answered. The recording devices were still running, but no one was laughing anymore. Sarah stood in the center of the mess hall with her jacket fastened over the tattoo. The silence pressed down on everyone like physical weight. 200 cadets watched her. None of them moved. None of them spoke. Krath remained frozen where he stood, the torn piece of collar still on the floor near his feet. "You want to know about scars?" Sarah said quietly. "You want to know about proof of being a warrior?" She touched her throat through the fabric. "Let me tell you about these names." She pointed to the left side of her neck. Thomas Parker. Medical officer. Age 24. He was treating wounded soldiers when enemy fire collapsed the bunker on top of him. I dug through rubble for 3 hours to pull him out. He died in my arms before we reached the extraction point. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably. Sarah's voice remained steady, almost emotionless, as if she was reading from a report. Michelle Torres. Communications specialist. Age 22. She held her position during an artillery bombardment to maintain our connection with command. I carried her body 6 kilometers through enemy territory because I promised her mother I would bring her home. Sarah's finger moved to another name. Kevin Walsh. Engineer. Age 27. He disabled enemy mines while under direct fire so our wounded could be evacuated. A sniper shot him 30 seconds before the transport arrived. I carried him those last 50 meters. He did not make it. The recording devices captured every word. Some cadets had lowered theirs, but most still recorded. "I can name all 23, Sarah said. "I remember every face. Every last word. Every promise I could not keep." She looked around the mess hall. "These are not decorations. This is not art. This is a memorial I carry on my skin." Shara spoke from her table, her voice uncertain. "Where did you serve?" "The Outland Rebellion," Sarah answered. "Earth's colony worlds in the Terminus sector. The conflict lasted 4 years. I was there for 2 of them." A young Karathi cadet raised his hand hesitantly. "The Outland Rebellion was fought by mercenary companies. I studied it in military history. No major powers were involved." "Correct," Sarah said. "No major powers wanted to waste resources on colony disputes. So Earth sent volunteer units. The Human Expeditionary Corps. We were not official military. We were not backed by the full might of Earth's defenses. We were just soldiers trying to protect settlers who could not protect themselves." She began to pace slowly, her boots clicking on the mess hall floor. "I joined when I was 19. Fresh out of basic training. I thought I understood what war meant." Her laugh was bitter. "I understood nothing." Krath finally found his voice. "How many drops?" "Combat drops." Sarah stopped pacing. 47. Orbital insertion into active combat zones. The first one, I was so scared I threw up inside my helmet during descent. By the 20th drop, I stopped counting. Drex leaned forward. "What was your position?" "I started as a squad member. Regular infantry. By my 10th drop I was squad leader. By my 30th, I commanded a platoon." Sarah's eyes grew distant. "Not because I was promoted. Because everyone above me was dead." The mess hall remained absolutely silent. Even the usual sounds of food preparation from the kitchen had stopped. The staff were listening too. "Tell us about the worst one," a Thalorian cadet said softly. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Firebase Glacier. A defensive position in the northern mountains. My platoon was ordered to hold it for 72 hours while civilians evacuated from the valley below. We had 43 soldiers. The enemy had over 300. She touched her throat again. The first day we held them off. Lost 9 soldiers. The second day they brought heavy weapons. Lost 14 more. The third day command ordered us to abandon the firebase. The evacuation was complete. We could leave. But you stayed, Shara said. We voted, Sarah replied. The enemy would use the firebase to shell the evacuation route if we left. The civilians would not make it to safety. So we stayed for 3 more days. Her voice dropped. By the end of day 4, I was the only one left alive. One soldier held a firebase? Krath's voice held disbelief. I did not hold it, Sarah corrected. I made them pay for every meter. I used traps. Ambushes. I fired from different positions to make them think there were still multiple defenders. I set explosives on timer delays to create confusion. She looked at Krath directly. I did not fight like a Vraxian warrior. I fought like a human. I used every dirty trick I could think of. For how long? Kix asked. 6 days total. 2 days alone. By the time relief forces arrived, I had run out of ammunition. I was down to a combat knife and improvised weapons. Sarah rolled up her sleeve, showing a long scar running down her forearm. This is from hand-to-hand combat on day 5. This is a real scar. I have others. She let her sleeve fall back down. But the scars on my skin heal. The names on my throat do not. Those stay forever. Commander Zrel had entered the mess hall at some point during Sarah's story. He stood near the entrance, his 4 eyes fixed on her. Cadet Webb, he said formally. What decorations did you receive for your service? Sarah turned to face him. 2 medals of valor. The Star of Sacrifice. The Lone Survivor Commendation. She paused. And the Celestial Cross. The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed through the mess hall. Even Zrel's expression changed. The Celestial Cross? Drek stood up from his table. That is the highest military honor in known space. Only 12 have ever been awarded. 13 now, Sarah said quietly. Krath's scales had lost some of their color. Why did you not tell us? Why did you let us mock you? Sarah looked at him for a long time before answering. Because telling you would have meant nothing. You needed to learn that what you see is not always what exists. That the smallest warrior can carry the heaviest burden. That strength is not measured in claws or scales or size. She picked up her meal tray from the table. The food had grown cold. Your people were bred for war over thousands of years. You were shaped by evolution and genetic engineering to be perfect warriors. You had no choice in what you became. Sarah walked toward the exit, stopping beside Krath. Humans chose to be warriors. We chose to fight. We chose to die for causes we believed in. We are not built for war, but we learned to survive it anyway. We are not naturally strong, but we became strong through necessity. She met his eyes. There is a difference between being born a warrior and becoming one. Between having war in your blood and having it in your soul. She continued toward the door. As she passed Zrel, the commander straightened to attention. It was a subtle gesture, but everyone saw it. Sarah paused at the exit and turned back one final time. You asked me to prove I am a warrior. I just did. These 23 names are my proof. Every mission I survived when I should have died is my proof. Every soldier I carried home is my proof. She touched her torn collar. And I will never apologize for being underestimated. It has kept me alive more times than I can count. Then she left the mess hall. Behind her, 200 cadets sat in complete silence. The news spread through Meridian 7 Academy in less than 2 hours. Videos from the mess hall appeared on every cadet's personal device. By evening, the entire station knew about Sarah Webb and the names on her throat. Sarah sat alone in her quarters, sewing her torn collar back together with careful stitches. Someone knocked on her door. She did not answer. They knocked again. Cadet Webb, this is Commandant Voros. I need to speak with you. Sarah set down her sewing and opened the door. Commandant Voros stood in the corridor, his massive Thalorian frame filling the doorway. He was the highest-ranking officer in the academy, a decorated general who had fought in 7 major conflicts. May I enter? He asked. Sarah stepped aside. Voros had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. He looked around her small quarters, taking in the sparse furniture and the single photo on her desk. The photo showed a group of soldiers in combat gear, smiling at the camera. Your unit, Voros said. Was not a question. Yes, sir. Voros picked up the photo carefully. How many of them came home? 4 out of 43, Sarah replied. The commandant set the photo down gently. I reviewed your file this evening. Your complete file, not the summary that was sent to admissions. His voice was grave. It was flagged as standard admission. The decorations were listed, but someone marked them as clerical errors. No one verified them. Sarah said nothing. You should not be in the standard training program, Voros continued. With your record, you should have been fast-tracked to advanced officer training. You should be teaching tactics, not learning basic formations. I chose the standard program, sir, Sarah said. Why? Sarah looked at the photo on her desk. Because I need to understand how others think, how they learn, how they fight. I cannot lead if I do not understand the people I will lead alongside. Voros nodded slowly. I came here to apologize. On behalf of this academy and myself personally. You were treated with disrespect. You were mocked and dismissed. That should never have happened. Apology accepted, sir. I also came to offer you immediate transfer to the advanced program. You would skip the next 2 years of basic training and move directly to command courses. Sarah shook her head. I respectfully decline, sir. Why? Because there are other cadets in this academy who are being dismissed and mocked. Not because they are human, but because they are small or weak or different. They need someone to show them that being underestimated is not a weakness. It is an advantage if you know how to use it. Voros studied her face. You want to finish the standard program? Yes, sir. With my class. The commandant smiled slightly. Your class is lucky to have you, Cadet Webb. Even if most of them do not know it yet. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Commander Zrel has been reassigned. He allowed a hostile environment to develop under his watch. That is unacceptable. After Voros left, Sarah returned to sewing her collar. Another knock came 30 minutes later. This time it was Krath. The Vraxian stood in the corridor, his head lowered. He did not meet her eyes. I came to apologize, he said quietly. What I did in the mess hall was wrong. What I have done for 3 weeks was wrong. He finally looked up. I have no excuse. I saw a human and I assumed weakness. I was taught that strength means size and claws and armor. I was wrong. Sarah leaned against the doorframe. Why are you really here, Krath? Because I am ashamed, he said simply. Because I mocked a warrior who earned her place while I was given mine by birth. Because I tore your collar and exposed something personal without permission. Because I was cruel. Yes, Sarah agreed. You were. Krath reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of fabric. I brought this. It is Vraxian combat silk. It is very strong. I thought perhaps you could use it to repair your collar. He held it out. Sarah took the fabric. It was deep red, the same color as Krath's scales. Thank you. I also came to ask if you would teach me, Krath said. Teach me how to think like you think. How to see patterns. How to turn weakness into strength. I will consider it, Sarah said. But first, you need to apologize to the other cadets you have mocked. Not just me. All of them. Krath nodded. I will. The next morning, Sarah arrived early for combat simulation training. She studied the roster of team assignments. As senior cadets, they were now allowed to choose their own teams for advanced scenarios. Krath approached her. So did Shara and Drex. Even Kix hovered nearby. We want you on our team, Krath said. We want to learn from you. Sarah shook her head. No. They looked confused. You are all strong, Sarah explained. You are all skilled. You will succeed no matter who leads you. She pointed across the room. But they will not. She gestured to 3 cadets standing alone in the corner. A Dulvian named Pip who barely reached Sarah's shoulder. A Centauri called Lynn who was smart but physically weak. A young Vraxian named Thorn who was small for his species and constantly mocked by the other Vraxians. I choose them, Sarah announced loudly. The room went quiet. Pip looked up in surprise. Lynn's eyes widened. Thorn seemed confused. Those are the weakest cadets in the class, Shara said. You will fail every simulation. Maybe, Sarah agreed. Or maybe I will teach them what humans learned about turning disadvantages into advantages. She walked toward the 3 cadets. Pip, Lynn, Thorn. You are with me. Pip shuffled forward nervously. You really want us on your team? I want people who know what it feels like to be underestimated, Sarah said. I want people who are hungry to prove themselves. I want people who will listen and learn and adapt. We will fail, Lynn said quietly. We always fail. That is why no one picks us. Sarah smiled. You fail because you try to fight like them. She gestured at the larger, stronger cadets. Stop trying to be what you are not. Start using what you are. The first simulation began. Sarah's team faced a scenario designed for heavy assault troops. They were supposed to break through fortified lines using superior firepower. Instead, Sarah taught them to go around, to find weak points, to use timing and patience instead of strength and speed. Pip learned to use his small size to access vents and maintenance tunnels. Lynn learned to hack security systems and turn enemy defenses against themselves. Thorn learned that being fast mattered more than being strong if you knew where to strike. They failed the first simulation, and the second. By the third, they started to understand. By the fifth simulation, they succeeded. Other teams stopped to watch. They saw the smallest cadets defeating scenarios designed for warriors twice their size. They saw Sarah teaching instead of commanding, guiding instead of ordering. Krath approached after the session ended. I understand now why you chose them. Do you? Sarah asked. You are not just teaching them tactics, Krath said. You are teaching them that they have value. That being different does not mean being less. Sarah touched her throat, feeling the names beneath her collar. Someone taught me that once. A long time ago. On a battlefield far from here. She looked at her team, watching Pip laugh at something Lynn said, seeing Thorn stand a little taller. I am just passing it forward. That evening, Sarah sat in her quarters with her collar fully repaired. She had sewn Kratha's red combat silk into the lining. It was hidden, but she knew it was there. A reminder that even those who hurt us can learn. Even those who mock us can change. She looked at the photo of her unit one more time, then placed it face down on the desk. 23 names rested against her throat. 23 reminders of why she was here. To teach. To lead. To show others that strength comes in many forms. And to make sure that no one, ever again, would be dismissed simply for being different.